already, but
All
it
right.
starts out talking about George Floyd, 46-year-old black man, kneeled on. Protest started next day, Minneapolis. Minnesota governor. Minnesota governor asking for peace. A bunch of different cities around the United States putting a curfew in effect because people are going crazy all around the U.S. The White House turning off the exterior lights. Like, just a lot of random stuff. But the main thing being that riots happened right after this man's death because it was caught on video.
Well, especially when it's caught on video, I don't think it's even dubitable that was an excessive use of force. You know, you could just handcuff him, hold him down, and then throw him in the car and just get on with the arrest. But, you know, race riots will always happen because black people, you know, let's fucking face it, whether it's because of DNA or, you know, this inferior genetics or the welfare equation, these people don't have anything better to do. And since they're mostly on government benefits, you know, it's just still not enough. You give them an inch, they take a mile. And what are they taking? TVs and lamps and the Versace.
Hey! It was a fat white woman that ran in and ran out with lamps.
Well, you know, first of all, she's fat. She probably couldn't really manage to.
Well, she probably walked in. She walked at a moderate speed.
Yeah, because
and saw the lamps.
Here's the other thing.
She's like, I need a lamp.
Here's the other thing. You know, with race riots, you can only steal so much shit before your house is just full, and it's a very limited opportunity to have, you know, a supply of goods. So when you run out of space and when the stores run out of things to steal, the riots stop, right? Or no, excuse me, that's when the looting will stop. But you know, when race riots happen, they're usually just like a couple days, and it's usually about burning shit down and stealing things and just causing chaos until the government gives in. But the thing is, they've already done.
I haven't started yet. I haven't started recording yet. I was just
okay. All right, fine.
I was just going over what we're going to talk about. You dove right in.
Well, I already started recording, so whatever. Anyway, you can.
All right. I started.
Okay.
Okay. So, we took a knee, and that didn't go very well.
Yeah. Give them an inch, they take a mile. You give in to their demands, they don't respect you more, they respect you less. Not because they're inherently evil, but because you're rewarding their behavior instead of punishing it. So that's what riots are. You're negotiating, like, giving what rioters want is negotiating with terrorists, and they're just going to escalate the violence because they know it keeps rewarding them, unless, you know, the stores just run out of things to steal, or their little title, their Section 8 housing is just too full of stolen TVs. There's literally no room to put any more of them in there. So
shortly after this man's death, we've had 170 fires, countless stores looted and robbed, police cars bashed in, and who's all going to pay for it?
Well, take a wild guess, huh?
Us.
Yep. Tax-paying working citizens have to pay for the shit. Because racism, because we owe them the money from reparations.
So why do we use one man's death as an excuse to go and commit more crimes like stealing, looting, arson?
Because they can. Simple as that. Because it's seen. First of all, the black community, because of the welfare they've been given, they're so unwilling to blame themselves for the problem for the absolute dog shit community that, half of it's due to the fact that welfare is poison and destroys anything that consumes it. But also there's this cultural message going around the black community, or being rich or speaking proper English or having a decent job and a happy family with mom and dad both together is considered Uncle Tomery. You are an Uncle Tom if you speak proper English, dress nicely, have a good job, and are a very good contributor to society. You could say it's gang culture. Gang culture comes from mass imprisonment. This mass imprisonment is mainly due to welfare destroying the family unit. So that's where it all comes from, this long chain of events. But of course, these people are a very sizable portion of the voters, so much to the point that there's very excessive gerrymandering going on in cities with very high black populations, such as Chicago. So the politicians aren't going to do shit because this is their voter base. And when it's basically a feedback loop at this point. You give in to their demands, that reinforces their behavior. There's more of it's going to happen, given that there's stores that still have stuff to steal from. And your city turns to shit because you wanted to give those poor single moms some welfare instead of just telling them to go shack up with grandma and grandpa until they can find a man with a decent job.
Okay. So 8 minutes. So the officer in question kneeled on George, I believe. Hang on, let me check. I forgot what his name was. George Floyd.
You ever notice it happens so often you have to check the names every time?
Yeah.
Every 2 years is this shit. This is nothing new. But anyway.
So George Floyd was on the ground. Maybe he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. Who knows? He was on the ground, and an officer kneeled on him for 8 minutes.
Well,
and the original report from the police was 2 minutes or something like that. It wasn't 8. But the video revealed that he was kneeled on for 8 minutes, and then his lifeless body was put on a stretcher into an ambulance and taken away.
Well, see, almost every single one of these instances, they only show the very tail end of the altercation, and they totally either obfuscate or entirely deny all the things that happened before it. Whenever the police start beating your ass, not defending the fucking crooked cops out there, but it usually doesn't start for no reason, because the police would have a huge PR problem if they just pick on a random black guy and just start beating his ass. You start a fucking riot, you'll get your own other officers who weren't involved in the incident itself in a lot of legal and physical danger. So it is in the police's best interest to not just start beating some guy up randomly, unlike what these identity politics advocates are trying to push. Not just the black protesters, but the white protesters too, the fucking Antifa. So, usually whenever there's like you said, there's 8 minutes, and all people know is just all people see on social media is just the last 2 minutes, and they obviously hide the first 6 minutes for a good reason, probably, to push their own agenda. So it probably I heard it started over a counterfeit $20 bill. And George Floyd has some videos telling young black teenage boys to stop fighting and go home, which is wholesome. But everyone's existence is very multifaceted. Even Hitler had a family that he probably cared about very dearly, or at least he had a dog, before he killed them. But whatever. My point is, he might be a wholesome person. He has friends. He probably has a family. He probably treats them very well, but people's existences are complex. There's many different sides to each person's life. Everyone has a bright side, everyone has a dark side, because that's just human nature. You have friends and you have enemies. You have things in the world and the universe that you like, and you have things in the world and the universe that you don't like and you want to see gone. So he might be up to some shady business, just like the majority of young black men or working age black men in the United States. Counterfeiting $20. I mean, that's here's the other thing you got to consider. So he's counterfeiting $20. He was at, like, I don't know, like a gas station, buying some snacks or whatever, or buying some groceries, because that's how inner city people will get their groceries, from a fucking convenience store. Considering how he's in the black ghetto, how likely was it that the person who called the cops, most likely the cashier, how likely was it that the cashier is white? Probably no. It's not very likely. The cashier is probably black too. So this is at the very least, the ignition to this chain of events was not racially biased. It's just about black people fighting with black people, as people fucking fight in the ghetto, regardless of their colors. So it all started with the counterfeit $20 bill, because Floyd was up to some shady business, even though he's a generally wholesome guy. Now, the $20 bill leads to a fight with the cashier. Fight with the cashier escalates as other people get involved. People start dogpiling, and then there's legit reason for the cops to come in, because there's some serious shit going down. And when the cops come, Floyd is probably he probably doesn't like the cops. Probably for good reasons, probably for bad reasons. Doesn't matter, because whenever you're faced with the cops, you can choose to sit there and cooperate, or run for your goddamn life. And considering how the already long established tensions between the most ghetto people, but especially the black ghettos, the black communities in the United States, and the police already are, he's not going to expect diplomacy from the police, even though he could have gotten it had he just taken the fight to court instead of on the street. And since there's so many policemen, and since these policemen have
was
guns,
there a fight?
What's that?
Was there a fight?
I am 99.999% sure. Add some more nines after that. Almost, like, essentially 100% sure there was a fight. But
So
of course,
you think that an officer showed up due to the fake $20 bill that was called in by another fellow?
you put pressure on a small crack, it becomes a bigger one. If you ever work with aluminum, that's all. You know how it works, right? So same thing same thing here. Now, convenience stores, especially in the ghetto, they probably deal with shoplifters a lot. So the cashier is probably a bit more defensive about his or her store. So if that cashier is probably going to throw some hands if Floyd comes up with a counterfeit money, fucking fake money, to pay for his groceries. And we ain't about that. That ain't how we do it here. Clap, clap, clap between the syllables, and that becomes a big fight. And in case you didn't know, whenever there's a huge disagreement in the black community, they don't have their own internal government like the Muslim no-go zones do in France. They don't have their own internal government like the Amish communities do. They just call the cops on each other all the time. And that's how the cops were called in, because they know, there's probably going to be a fair bit of trouble. And
Okay. So the first video that was released was of one cop kneeling and another cop just kind of standing there. And later we got footage of 4 cops actually being there in total. And so was he handcuffed and then kneeled on? Or then kneeled on before he finally died?
well, when you're kneeling on somebody, the only thing I can think of, the purpose of kneeling on someone, is to have your center of gravity closer to theirs so you can hold them down. and handcuff them. And also, since it's like hard to hit something from behind your back, it's like, and I guess a further application of a Nelson. When a Nelson doesn't work, you got to put the center of gravity of your opponent onto the ground. And I guess being on your knees puts your center of gravity close to his center of gravity, so it's the least effort to keep your target on the ground. So practically speaking, there's no point to do that whenever he already has his handcuffs, unless these cops are just like straight up sadists, which I won't necessarily deny either.
Everyone has their kink.
Yeah, fucking BDSM and leaking into the police department's strategies. Yeah.
Oh God.
The feminists are doing a lot more damage than we thought. Huh? Sex
positive. So side note, in the GTA San Andreas, the PlayStation 2 game, if you got inside the police department, there's this double-ended pink dildo called the Punisher, and it's like longer than the character's arm, I think. And you can find it in the police department in the showers.
And you can use it like a melee weapon.
Yep, you beat people to death with it. Yep.
That came before the Saints Row, the Penetrator.
Ooh.
Yeah. Anyways, to answer your question, I think for whatever reason, since it's whenever there's that much adrenaline running through your body, you probably your brain doesn't function as well as it should. And the cops probably dig the adrenaline rush from their job. But at the same time, that comes at a cost where he can't find his handcuffs. So you got to think quick before he gets away. So you call one of your buddies to like put his knees on his chest, on Floyd's chest, so he doesn't get away. And as you're digging for your handcuffs, maybe your friend just got had a little too much fun, bringing law to the land. And so he just like scoots his, maybe Floyd's got some decent muscle on his body. And in order to continue containing Floyd, police officer 2 just like starts to scoot his knees from Floyd's chest down to his neck, and then that's how that happens. Like nobody's hair is neat after getting in a fight, right? So this is the same kind of thing that happens whenever you're in a physical altercation with somebody. Your coordination goes out the window. There's no precision in your movements or attacks, or anyone's for that matter. And shit gets messy. And that's how people die. And instead of considering that it's just simply a fact of human nature, the fact being that, police get off to asserting their authority in a very sadistic way to make their little dicks feel bigger, I guess. Instead of acknowledging that police brutality is literally a problem for everybody, including whites on whites, there's black cops who maim and kill unarmed black men. Instead of just acknowledging that blatant fact, it has to be a racial issue. And that gives them an excuse to, start burning shit and looting stores like they always do. And this is just it's gonna happen again probably next year. Because there's always black guys getting shot by cops, and it's always the same thing happening. Small problem becomes a big problem. Big problem gets the cops called. Cops come in. Black guy doesn't comply with the police orders. He takes the fight to the street rather than the court, and he dies. And then you start flooding the news. Everyone goes crazy, and then some other new bullshit takes our attention spans away, and then repeat again next year.
So I believe history has repeated itself a couple times. So the LA riots was before our time, but from what we know, something very similar happened.
Yeah, it's just the same problem as always. It's all thanks to Lyndon B. Johnson's. I'll have those.
Hey, careful!
I know.
Careful, monetization.
I'm thinking of a good word to use. Well, I mean, considering how much we swear, I don't think you're going to get monetized anyways. But oh well. Thanks to these
diverse individuals.
Thanks to our fellows, our fellow friends of African American descent. And I'll have those African American fellows of our kin voting Democrat for the next 200 years. End quote, Lyndon B. Johnson. Just thanks.
And if you're curious, you can Google Lyndon B. Johnson, look up what he actually said.
Lyndon B. Johnson, The Great Society. You can go find that shit yourself. But yeah, ever since progressivism, and that was just like, okay, that's just for like the blacks in America. And there was also Woodrow Wilson, who played a part in ratifying the 19th, and he could also be tied into like how World War II started. He pissed off the Japanese that caused Pearl Harbor, and that's another rabbit hole. But because what's interesting, the irony of this is that by doing what Jesus would have done, by giving these poor people a little help, you end up with this. You stop incentivizing them from improving themselves, because when you want to help people, you don't help them directly. You help them help themselves. They have to make the conscious decision to dig themselves out of the hole that they're in order to really make a change in their lives. But when you try to take control, when you try to play God and fuck with the natural order, this is what happens. These people don't improve inside, and then they start resenting you for trying to help them when they don't want to be helped. And that causes tensions. Tensions cause violence. And violence is, well, I mean, what are you looking at the screen here, right? And people just, they just, the worst part is that this help, known as welfare, not only is it was used with ill intent, but the most nefarious part of it is that the people who it's affected are going to be addicted to it. And when they're addicted to it, they will begin to hate you if you decide to take it away, even if it's for their own good. And they will never understand it's for their own good because they're so dependent on it. They have no idea of how to sustain themselves otherwise. It's part of culture.
Obviously,
you look at like rap songs talk about like, all the welfare they get, all the baby mamas, banging these hoes and rolling in this cash as a criminal because I need to stay unemployed because the welfare. That's where it all began. But they vote. So what are you gonna do?
So anyway. The riots didn't happen until the next day, and I wonder who woke up the earliest and got to the first target or whatever and said, I'm going to use this man's death as an excuse to go steal this fucking lamp or this Lunchable. Or I wonder who was the first one to decide, okay, we're going to use this as an excuse to go take and destroy. Was the first person at the store whenever they opened?
No, I don't think it starts with one person. With social media, this happens like overnight. Whereas like back in the LA riots, I'm sure it took like weeks to build up because the information doesn't get across as quickly.
Yeah, back in the 90s.
Yeah. So whenever you have one person by himself, he's not going to do shit because he knows that he would just be flanked. He first of all, you had to deal with the shop owner. What if the shop owner pulls a shotgun from beneath his table? He's toast. And then the cops come along. There's always multiple cops. So one guy alone won't do shit. 10 people will share the video around, and it'll make its rounds on social media and get a few hundred views. But 10 people still won't do shit. So what happens is that someone found out about this. Like the first guy who had a phone recording, he just shared it. And he might not be, part of Black Lives Matter. He might not be black himself. He's just like, oh, look at this crazy thing that's happening. God, wow, this is crazy shit. And then everybody sees
those lamps.
Yeah. So, those lamps. Now, I'm talking about like the original video with like Floyd in it. So Floyd so this guy, whoever he is, recorded the video. He shares it. 10 people see it. 10 people get mad, and then they share it. Look what the white man's doing to us now. Our brothers, we need to unite. We're down with the struggle. And then hundreds of people see it. And then once hundreds of people are mad, then you can start a riot. So it depends on how far down the chain of events you want to go. If you want to decide what caused it, per se, but yeah,
And
people
think
have to be
about
angry first. There has to be a
think
lot
about
of
the
angry people.
owners of these stores. I mean, most of them, I'm guessing, are chain stores and they're corporations, and they'll probably recover and they'll be all right. But like, think of the stores that probably got robbed that were like mom and pop shops. Like, they depended like every day.
Well,
Like,
rioters
okay,
don't
let
care because
like
because being rich is evil. I mean, you're holding the little guy down. You're holding being rich. Well, yeah.
like
see. Here's the
like
other thing though.
next week we need next week's pay. If we don't get next week's pay, we're done.
Yeah,
We
we're
go
gonna
back
go
to
and
where we
strike and
started.
riot. So
Yeah.
again, this is not even it's not even a race thing anymore. Considering that they're just stealing shit, and they're stealing things from like even before this even started. The fact that the Uncle Tom archetype even exists in black culture proves to you how it's more or less it's more class warfare than race warfare. It has nothing to do with race at this point. They're just spitting race out because the word racist gets you to shut up. When you criticize them, then they could just say, "Oh, you can't criticize what we're saying because we're black and you're racist. You're literally Hitler. You're a Nazi, evil white supremacist." And that's how they get you to shut up because racism is only, and also the word racism only has weight because black people riot. Like the same. That's the same reason why criticizing Islam is literally illegal in in the UK and probably France too. Not because people actually give a shit, but because of the consequences. When you riot, might makes right. So when you have the might, you get to tell people what's right and wrong. And most people are just they're not going to stand up to this unless something offends them very personally. So yeah, that's why you can't criticize Islam in Europe. That's why you can't criticize black people in the U.S. because whoever it is you can't criticize are the ones that are ruling over you, as quoted by Voltaire, or whoever.
Okay. So any closing comments? Because we're getting pretty long in the video.
Might makes right. Money talks and bullshit walks. And what's even more powerful than money is force, violence, and death. Well, pain and
Wow.
death. So,
That hits pretty deep.
yeah.
I would say that the people that are looting, rioting, burning, hurting, and just wasting our tax dollars are the true evil people here.
These are your tax dollars hard at work.
Tax dollars hard to work, and okay, so maybe that okay, so yeah, the cop fucked up.
Yeah,
He
but
he
everybody is
he
paying for it.
overstepped, and other people decided to say, okay, hey, I'm gonna use this man's death, this cop's fuck up, as my excuse to go.
Go
Oh,
steal shit.
I'm gonna go steal. I'm gonna go steal. I'm gonna go destroy, set fire, and ruin everyone else's day.
Yep,
Because no one benefits.
and we're still paying for their existence really, because they're probably not net contributors to the economy. They're mostly on benefits, welfare checks. Mostly the single mothers who produce these kinds of people. And since they don't have any father there to keep their kids in check, these kids go off to gangs, and that's how this shit starts. And that's how the Bloods versus Crips start killing each other, because they don't have a dad there to take care of them and keep the kid and make sure the kids are behaved. And they don't have dads because welfare. Because why deal with the arduous the drudgery of having a healthy family with both a father, mother, and kids together when you can just take money for squeezing bastard kids out. You get free money. You don't have to please a man. You don't have to make him happy. You don't have to, keep the house clean or have sex with him. You just get free money for giving birth to kids you don't care about. And yeah, I mean, who needs motherly love? Who needs intact families? Who needs fathers when you can just give people welfare, because that's what Jesus would do. Even though we're not supposed to be Christians. Don't tell anyone that.
That has to be the longest closing statement.
Yeah. Okay,
in the
well, you
history
can
of
cut it out
closing
now.
statements. All right, sounds good.